Okay, so get ready to dive into Vila Esperanza. Because in August,
Yeah.
it was absolutely bursting at the seams. Festivals, celebrations, learning adventures. I mean, honestly, by the end, I was wondering if they even have a normal school over there.
It really is remarkable, isn't it?
It's like someone dropped us in the middle of this whirlwind of activity, but in the best way possible. In this report, it's less of a summary and more like an invitation.
Oh, absolutely. Reading it, you really get pulled in.
Right into the heart of Vila Esperanza.
And, it's that feeling when you discover a place and you think, okay, something's different here. This is where they've figured it out, connection, learning, spilling out everywhere. That's Vila Esperanza.
So what's the secret ingredient in their recipe? Well, that's what we're going to find out. But first, let's rewind to the beginning of August. Escola Pluricultural Odé Kayodê. Their school. They're kicking off a new year, but they're doing things a little differently, let's just say.
A little differently.
Yeah, think less about textbooks and more about, well, planting seeds.
Planting actual seeds.
Literally. Seeds of care. That's how they put it.
I like that.
Right. It's not just a new year. It's about nurturing, nurturing knowledge, each other, the community. Makes you think about how powerful that idea of care could be, especially in education.
Absolutely. And that really sets the stage for what sounds like an incredible month.
Jam-packed, and it all sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But one of the things that jumped out, at least for me, was Sinvila.
Ah.
Now, this wasn't your average movie night. They managed to bring the Mercosul Audio-Visual Festival right into the community.
Which is fantastic on its own, but then they took it a step further.
They did.
They brought the films to Fanina, the nearby community. I mean, that's real dedication, making sure everyone has access to those cultural experiences.
It really makes you question what is a film festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be confined to specific spaces or audiences.
Exactly. Art should be for everyone.
And speaking of inclusivity and access, they had Marcelo Barros himself, the renowned theologian, launching his new book right there in Vila Esperanza.
Los Segredos do Nosso Encanto. Deeply insightful book, exploring the wisdom of both indigenous and Afro-descendant cultures. And the fact that he chose to launch it not just at the Espacio Cultural, but at the school, too.
It's a big deal. It really shows how committed they are to making those perspectives central to life in Vila Esperanza.
For sure. It's one thing to talk about inclusion, it's another to live it.
Exactly. Okay, but we can't forget about the Iraya da Esperanza. It sounded like they really put their own spin on this traditional festival.
Oh, they did. It wasn't just about having a party. They wanted to make sure they celebrated rural life authentically, No cliches, just genuine appreciation.
I love that. And that little detail about families bringing food to share, it wasn't just a festival, it was a giant community feast.
Food, stories, traditions, it's all connected. I think that's where the magic of Vila Esperanza really shines through, don't you?
It's like this perfect blend of education, culture, and community. You can tell it's intentional, but it also just feels natural. And you know what I love? It's not just the big events that make Vila Esperanza so special.
What really got to you?
This report. It's full of these little moments, small details, but they really say a lot. Like Anastasia and her doll, Maria Grampino.
Oh, that's sweet. What happened?
So she brought the doll to visit the Espacio Cultural, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sparked this whole intergenerational conversation.
No way.
Yeah. She wasn't just playing with dolls, she was sharing stories, memories. And then, get this, the kids got to make their own dolls with her.
That's amazing. Talk about making learning fun and meaningful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of bringing people together, that day of the neighbor celebration, man, I wish more communities did stuff like that.
It's a beautiful idea, isn't it? What stood out to you?
It's that picture they paint, kids and their neighbors sharing breakfast music, poems by Cor Coralina, just simple things, but they create such a strong sense of belonging.
It reminds us that community building doesn't have to be complicated.
It really doesn't. And Vila Esperanza just keeps proving that point, like Vovo Below, making those special snacks for the kids.
Ah, she's become a bit of a legend, hasn't she?
Right. Every corner you turn, there's another heartwarming example of generations connecting, learning from each other.
It makes you think, how do we recreate this? It seems so simple, but incredibly powerful.
Seriously. What can we learn from these interactions? They seem small, but they're clearly making a huge impact.
Well, I think it starts by acknowledging the value of each generation. Vila Esperanza creates the space for those connections to flourish, where wisdom is shared.
And it's not just about the past. right? It's about empowering the future, too. Take the Jongo group, for example.
Oh, that's right. For those who don't know, Jongo is this incredible, vibrant Afro-Brazilian dance form.
And this group, who learned their craft at the Espaço Cultural, they got to perform at the Teatro São Joaquim in Rio.
A big deal.
Talk about taking your learning to a whole new level. But you know what impressed me even more?
What's that?
They brought that experience back to Vila Esperança. They didn't just keep it to themselves. They shared their skills and their passion with the kids at Odé Kayodê.
That's so important. It's one thing to preserve a tradition, but it means so much more when you actively pass it on to the next generation.
Keeps it alive, you know. It creates a ripple effect of learning and inspiration.
Totally. And that ripple effect, it goes beyond just traditional art forms, too.
What do you mean? Adriana Robusis, remember. The coordinator at Odé Kayodê, she got invited to speak at a pretty prestigious education panel in Rio.
No way. Not just any panel either. We're talking Senac Rio, a huge deal in the education world. And the topic, the school of our dreams. Clearly, Odé Kayodê is doing something right.
Adriana chose Odé Kayodê to represent innovative education. That speaks volumes. So put yourself in that room at that Senac panel with all these experts. Even Gabriel Chalita was there. What's the one thing you'd highlight about what makes Odé Kayodê so special?
Wow, that's a tough one. But I think it always comes back to care for me.
Care.
That's right. It's their core value. Nurturing individual growth, yes, but also that deep commitment to community. It's powerful.
And it clearly resonates not just within Vila Esperança, but on a much larger scale. That's how real change happens, right?
Absolutely.
This is all incredible. But it does raise a big question. How did they do it? How did Vila Esperança manage to create this ecosystem where learning, culture, community, it's all so interconnected? What's the secret ingredient? It really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you bottle that Vila Esperança magic?
They've hit on something special, that's for sure.
Like they found the perfect recipe for a thriving community, you know?
And like any good recipe, there are key ingredients.
You talked about care.
Yeah.
That focus on connecting generations, making learning something you experience, not just read about. But maybe the most important ingredient of all.
Go on.
It's that sense of belonging, right? That feeling that you're part of something bigger.
It's powerful stuff.
It is. And it takes us back to that question we asked at the beginning. What if every community had a Vila Esperança?
A place where school is more than just school. It's the heart of everything.
The hub of culture, learning, shared experiences. Makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. What if we stopped thinking about education as something that just happens in a classroom with textbooks?
Yeah, what if it was about communities, sharing stories, traditions, learning from each other?
Vila Esperança is proving it's possible.
They really are. When you blur the lines between education, culture, and community, that's when the magic happens.
It's not about copying them exactly, of course, but we can take inspiration from what they're doing.
Right. So what small steps can we take in our own communities? How do we start to build those connections, create spaces where everyone feels valued, inspired, no matter who they are, how old they are?
Maybe it starts with something as simple as inviting an older neighbor over for a cup of tea. Ask them to share their stories.
Or volunteering, you know, mentoring someone younger. Or even just thinking about how we can celebrate our own cultures, share them with the people around us.
Every connection, no matter how small, it makes a difference. It ripples outwards.
Exactly. Vila Esperança isn't a utopia, but it is a beacon of hope. Proof that a better future is possible.
If we can imagine it and then actually take those first steps to create it.